Resources. I'm here with, hello,
Hmm.
I'm Jeff Krehmer, the author of Infinite Resources, and I'm here with Roger Calson, the author of the Saving the World Before Breakfast series of the books. And today we have a special guest, Ron Friedman, who is the author of Typhoon Time, a science fiction story. So I think we'll just do a little bit of background introduction here, and then we'll get into the topic today. And Roger, I'll let you introduce the topic after I do my little bit here. So I'm a
Hmm.
mechanical engineer based out of Central Alberta. I basically do consulting work, and the book that I wrote is to try to solve some of the world's main problems. And go ahead, Roger.
Okay, read the, as Ron mentioned, in the series of books, "Saving the World Before Breakfast," "Better Green Deal," "The Earth Alone Can Save Us." Working on some more, and they deal with energy and and food and the climate, which gets us to just about everything. And I also worked for NASA for 35 years, so we were involved in some of the rockets and some of the Landsat sort of things, observing and autonomous vehicles, which is now when you're not going to Mars, you can use them for putting payloads somewhere else, such as it's happening a lot in our this unfortunately, but it's fun. People love it. Where we could be talking about war, including the Middle East now, the Russia-Ukrainian area, and possible things in the China Strait between uh, Taiwan and the bigger part of China. And so, Ron, might you want to give a little bit more
Yeah,
of your
so as
background?
yeah, as Jeff already said, I'm a science fiction writer. I wrote the author of Typhoon Time and something like 18 or 19 idle short stories that takes place in the near future, either in space or military science fiction.
Mm-hmm.
I work in IT in the Calgary area.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Israeli Canadian, hence my accent and hence my information about Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Many years ago, and during the Gulf War, the late 1980s, I was an analyst in the Israeli Air Force intelligence, and intelligence NCO. But yeah, again, that was many years ago. Oh, let's talk
Mm-hmm.
about Iran. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
a little bit introduction. Uh, the goals of Israel and the goal of the US are not exactly identical. Israel see the war as a war for survival against an existential threat, especially if Iran will be able to gain nuclear weapon.
Mm-hmm.
That's an existential threat. The US, I think, see it's more as a one block in a global Cold War, some kind of a Cold War or competition with China. And they see Iran and Russia, maybe Russia a little bit less right now with Trump, as allies of China,
Mm-hmm.
kind of similar to Venezuela. So if they believe that if they can take Iran out of the Chinese, Russia, Iran axis, it will be beneficial for the US and its allies. So it's a bit a different framework, a little different goals for the war.
Yeah, and so I have been following the war just peripherally, but my take on it is, like Ron was saying, I think the Israelis managed to convince the Trump administration to join them in this fight to knock out any remaining threats the United States or sorry, Iran might pose in terms of nuclear weapons. They obviously also had the goal of, if you will, chopping off the head of the snake, as they say, in terms of regime change, getting rid of the leaders, which, as I understand it, in the United States Constitution, that's not something that, or not the Constitution, but laws and stuff. The United States doesn't officially participate in that, but they got the go around in the sense that Israel did the dirty work in that case.
They just did it in Venezuela.
Pardon me. Yeah,
They
well,
did it in
they took off the
Venezuela.
snake but it wasn't an assassination. It was a capture mission in that case. But yeah, they essentially did a regime change. Now, that's not to say the United States hasn't historically done a lot of regime changes. In fact, part of the reason we have this whole situation in the Middle East is because the 1953 Mossadegh government was basically uprooted by the CIA and British intelligence working together for mostly Anglo oil interests, because Mossadegh wanted to uh, basically turn all of the foreign oil companies, make them nationalized, and so that the Iranians could profit more from the oil. And of course, that had the blowback, because then the regime was replaced by the Shah of Iran, and then the Shah was deposed. Well, he left the United States for health reasons, but shortly after, the regime was ousted by the current Iranian regime, which, despite its head being chopped off, still seems to be alive and kicking and shooting missiles at oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz, or dropping mines in the waters. So that's my take on what's going on over there. And the other thing that I just want to say off the get-go is, I don't think that this war was really well planned out by the United States. Like, normally, if there's going to be a war, you have the president building it up in the media, and like we saw with George Bush Jr. Um, for months before there's an attack, and he has the support of Congress and all of that. This was more of I wonder if FDR would be rolling in his grave, because this essentially was like a Pearl Harbor sneak attack, just like the one that happened last year with the B-2 bombers. There was no warning, and there was no congressional support for it. So in essence, the United States has been taken to war by their leader without proper channels. But I'll
So
let you
there
talk
are
to
two
that,
things,
since you're
yeah.
American.
So there are two things I don't agree with you, but maybe Roger will talk first.
I'll start with, as I think it was Pete Hicks, as the Secretary of War, said that, really, we've been at war with Russia, or with the Ayatollah regime in Iran, for more like about 30 years, including where they blew up a barracks that had the Marines in it in Lebanon, and various assassinations here and there, attacks on ships, and so on. And that continued on with, I think, was it a year ago, or was it in the last Trump administration, where the head of the Revolutionary Guards military force was assassinated. So there's been
Salmani.
assassinations going back and forth uh, all the way. And of course, the Iranians were supplying the Houthis on the west side of the Arabian Peninsula, attacking all kinds of ships going through. And that was a war that the United States has been in. So there's some reasons for it, a lot of good ones, because cutting off the Red Sea would be bad enough by itself. Then the issue of nuclear, and as far as doing things without support of Congress, number one, there's enough Republicans in the Congress to support the war so far, and there is a precedent. An American president named Barack Obama attacked Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, and interestingly, Gaddafi had been the one that, after the first couple of wars in the Middle East, big ones that where coalitions were involved in, Gaddafi had turned over all his nuclear material. So he'd essentially broken with the radical Mohammedites. And so then Barack Obama took him out, like maybe somebody that was an Islamist might want to have happen. So that was done, and that war went on for several months till everything broke up, and they really didn't know who to shoot at, because most everybody was doing things. So that's a fine precedent for doing what Trump is doing now. And Hillary Clinton was involved in that. So, hey, we'll follow Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton's actions for a precedent.
All right. So, Ron, if I may just respond for a minute and then I'll let you jump in. So I just want to say Ronald Reagan has had other presidents. He invaded Grenada. He also did an attack on Gaddafi, and that attack killed Gaddafi's sons. And yeah, there definitely have been cases of the United States intervening in other wars, and you got Guatemala and Chile and a lot of other countries, East
Dominican
Timor,
Republic, when they were having a big civil war, Lyndon
right?
Johnson put troops
So
in, including my
there are,
cousin.
yeah, lots of precedents for that. But I'm just saying I like with Roosevelt, saying that the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor was a dastardly act without any warning and stuff. And now those are the very tactics that the United States is employing in these,
Okay, so the
security.
two things I want to respond to, Jeff. First, you said that Israel convinced the US. I don't think this is the case. I think, as I said earlier, their interest, similar to how they took Venezuela, and they also want to take Cuba. They also want to take Iran as an oil supply and resource supply. So they have their own reasons to take Iran, not related to Israel. One is to take the or control the oil supply to China. Iran has a huge lithium resources that could be used, very important for the AI and EV revolution that is coming. Also, Iran tried to assassinate Trump. Also, it's in the interest of the Gulf state, like the UAE and Saudi Arabia and stuff, to make sure Iran is not too powerful. And Iran is also controlling the Hezbollah, which killed them hundreds of Americans, and the Houthis that are blocking the Red Sea. And because of insurance, the cost of oil price, all shipping from Asia to Europe through the Red Sea as being, I'm not sure by how much, I think by at least four. So if you take Iran out of the equation and they stop funding the Houthis, global shipping cost is going to drop significantly. So it has a lot of advantage for the US not related to Israel. Um, so this is one thing, and later I will talk about the trigger, what triggered this war, what I think triggered it. And the second thing, I don't agree with you that they didn't have a plan. I think right now the US, I don't know if you heard presentation by Palantir, Alex Corp, whatever his name.
No.
They also have what happened right now is that the whole global order, the post-World War II global order is collapsing and it's going to be replaced by something new. So that's a part of it. So the US, I think the reason I think they had a plan is because they took Venezuela first. So that Venezuela has a bigger oil reserve than Iran. And they took, it's only supply about 4% of what China needs. Iran supply close to 20%. But the fact that they took Venezuela first tell me that there was some kind of plan.
Mm-hmm.
And the trigger, if I may move to the trigger of the war, the
Sure, go
trigger of
ahead.
the war, nuclear is a big issue for itself because if Iran will become nuclear, this is an existential threat to Israel. This is a big problem for the entire Middle East, especially the Gulf Arab states, and many of them will start to pursue nuclear weapons as well. So nuclear is a big reason. Another big reason is ballistic missiles. Iran was developing ballistic missiles that can get all the way to the US. They also already can get all the way to Europe. Drones, I think, already can get to the US. Uh, so the missile was problem. We have the ballistic missile. It's supplying Iran. Iran is supplying China. And the trigger that I think was maybe not the reason for the war, but the reason for the timing was the uprising in Iran. The regime right now is not very popular among the Iranian people.
Mhm.
In January, they had the uprising, and we don't know the exact number because the internet was shut off. But most accurate number that I read is close to between 30 and 40,000 people who were unarmed protesters were killed by the regime. So it is pretty clear that the regime itself does not have legitimacy and popular support among the population. And you can see it right now because right now Israeli drones and American planes are flying all over Iran, and the Iranian people are telling them, "Oh, there is a RGCP, Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corp, uh,
GC. Yeah.
is
Mhm.
gathering, and they are being bombed." So the Iranian people, I don't know I think it is a majority. I have Iranian coworkers that tell me 90% oppose the regime. Maybe the number a bit lower than 90%, but maybe it's at 70%. I don't know. But the regime doesn't have the legitimacy of the population. So
Mhm.
Iran was weak. The regime was weak. And I think this is the reason for the starting the war. And unlike what you said, I don't think it was unplanned. I think it was planned, and that's why they took Venezuela first to absorb the oil supply shock.
Okay, so
And
if I
furthermore,
may
there
just,
were, as opposed to the Japanese attack, they were negotiating at the time, and the United States found out the attack was going to come before the negotiators even knew. And so after the attack, the negotiators said, "We're at war," and as diplomats, we want to have diplomatic things so it can go back to our
I
country
think
anymore.
well,
the people that abandoned the negotiation told Trump that the negotiation failed. It's not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
well, and somebody came out and announced right at before the attack as well that the negotiations seem to be making progress. So I'm anyway. We can. I think that's kind of a little bit irrelevant. It's kind
I
of
think,
for the
well, I
Japanese.
mean, there was accusations that you know Franklin Roosevelt wouldn't have approved, and actually there were some comments. The only thing the Iranians were surprised at was they thought the Americans would wait, and Israelis would wait until night because that uh, that's been the thing that's been very helpful for the stealth fighter planes. But they figured they'd destroyed enough, so they attacked in the afternoon when the Iranian parliament, including the Ayatollah, were meeting to discuss how they were going to hide out and do things. And so they managed to get the Ayatollah and possibly his son as well. We don't know.
Yeah. Well,
He's
and to respond a little bit, so I agree that like, pretty much I agree with almost everything that Ron said, and maybe I misspoke in the sense of saying that there wasn't a plan. Obviously, there was a coordinated plan. I don't know that Israel would have attacked by themselves, and I don't know that the United States would have attacked by themselves. They coordinated it together for
mm-hmm,
maximum effect, and they have different goals, as Ron had pointed out.
mm-hmm,
Where I'm saying they don't have a plan is I don't think that they have a plan to get out and stop the war now without being able to, change the regime. And I don't think the Iranian regime is going to just say, "Oh, well, that's okay, guys, go away, and we'll let the ships go through the strait again, and
Oh,
everything will be hunky dory." And oh, by the way, things can go on in the UAE and other
mm-hmm,
countries around here without any problems. I don't think that's going to happen.
okay. So this is
mm-hmm.
again, I disagree with you.
And I think they could it the plan could go on. There are the Kurdish military forces have already done some attacks, and on the east side of Iran, there's
The
again another one
Baluchis.
of these historical messy things where the Iranians took part of I think the province is Baluchi, like part of Baluchistan, which doesn't have its own country. It's part of Pakistan, which it's not real happy with, and it's part of Iran. Well,
and Pakistan
to,
and Afghanistan.
yeah. So those people would appreciate a few tens of thousands of weapons, automatic weapons, McCullis rifles, things, and hey, somebody giving air support for them. So if they lop off a province, that's going to hurt. And as things go on, the Iranian refining system was already in trouble. Well, just a little bit more, and the Iranian Revolutionary Guards and Army won't have diesel and gasoline. So
It's a lot worse.
they're, as again, they're
They're
weak.
not going to have
They're
money.
ready to get hit. They can't if they
Right
can't
now they don't
drive.
have ATM.
Mm-hmm,
They lost the internet. Right now they don't have ATM. On
mm-hmm,
the 21st of March, they're supposed to get salaries. They're probably not going to get the salaries.
mm-hmm.
You think they'll lay down their arms when they're
No,
no
that's
longer
not
getting
what I
paid?
said. That's not what I said. But they are in a lot bigger problem than how CNN and Western media are trying to present.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also, then I think the estimation in Israel, the number of missiles that they were supposed to
Mm-hmm.
fire is about half of what they were supposed to. And right now, they started with something like 100 missiles a day. Now there are 10 missiles a day. Drone is pretty intensive, but also about half of what it was in the war in last year, the 12 days war. Back then, they fire
Mm-hmm.
about 1,000 drone. Now they fire 400 and something. So Iran is not in good shape, and the building, all the internet is connected through a very small number of buildings. That's how the Iranian government is controlling the population, and these buildings were blown away. So right now they don't have internet, almost no internet.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So as I said, ATM machine will not work. From what I heard, the IRGP, Iran Revolutionary Guard Corps, they lost
Mm-hmm.
about 6,000 people, and maybe to 13,000 were injured out of 130,000. So
Mm-hmm.
they are demoralized. And I heard the foreign minister today already said that they are willing to talk about ending the war. They only won't guarantee that there will be no similar attacks. So I think they're going to be first to crack.
Well,
Uh,
and
Mm-hmm.
as
the
for I'm not saying regime change, but I'm talking about the current regime.
yeah, I mean, certainly they're not in a good situation. At the same time, the United States, beyond taking Karg Island, which they've attacked their non-oil infrastructure on the island, looks like the Marines might go in and actually take the island. There's not a good chance that I see for the United States putting boots on the ground on the mainland. Uh,
Maybe in Hormuz Straits or maybe in some of the
Possibly,
nuclear
but
facilities.
I've heard
No, no,
differing
no, no
opinions.
boots on the ground. No massive invasion like Iraq. That
Yeah.
one I agree. There's no
And
public support
Mm-hmm.
for it in the US.
I've also heard similar things about the IRGC soldiers saying things like, you know, we're kind of disbanding. People are going home, and we just hope that the people don't kill us when we go home, type of thing, because they've
Mm-hmm.
had years of repression. So that remains to be seen on what's going to happen if the people will rise up. Regarding the Kurds, so and this is, of course, I'm just going by what I hear from others. It's not like I have any inside information, but the Kurdish nation goes from like Turkey through Iraq and into Persia,
Syria.
Mm-hmm.
and they the factions within those countries don't even agree on different policies. And what's happened in the past, like when the Iraq War was going on, the Americans supported them and said, "Hey, why don't you create an independent country?" But in the end, they didn't. And so I think there's a big lesson there that the United States in that regard can't be trusted. Yeah, maybe they'll
Well,
use
no.
us. They'll use us for the time being to accomplish their short-term goal of
Yeah,
overturning the company, but they're not going to support us to have our own independent nation. I think is what
I
the way
think
they're looking at
about the Kurd, if I may, Roger, say a word about the Kurd. Initially, there were some talk that maybe the US will help the Kurd to cause unrest and draw some IRGC forces to fight the Kurds. But then the US decided not to help the Kurds. And the reason for that is because the Iranian opposition was against it. They don't want Iran to break down to different provinces. They want Iran to stay a united country, and by helping the Kurds, they will lose support of the Persian people in Iran. And they didn't want to lose the help of the Persian people who oppose the regime. So the Kurds are not going to get any help from the US.
Okay,
That
Richard,
wouldn't stop them
Roger.
anyway, necessarily. They've been fighting for a couple thousand years to try to have a country.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the oil, because what Ron mentioned was quite interesting with
Mm-hmm.
the United States taking out the Venezuelan regime first and then heading over to Iran. And is this part of a larger geopolitical thing? I just want to say I find it interesting that with Venezuela, the idea, according to Trump, was, okay, we're going to control the oil flow now. But very few of the American oil companies are interested in getting involved in Venezuela for various reasons. For one thing is that the oil is hard to get at. The infrastructure needs to be built. Second,
Mm-hmm.
they'd be operating in a hostile territory. So, I mean, those two things are big deals. But what they've done in the meantime is they've said it's open season on the Russian shadow fleet and the Iranian and
Mm-hmm.
Venezuelan shadow fleet, and they've captured ships that have been flying these flags of
Convenience.
convenience. Yeah, and and other nations have followed suit. So now I think Belgium has taken a ship. France captured one, and they released it. Sweden recently captured one, and so that's definitely going to affect how the Russian oil gets to market. The other thing that's very interesting in all of this is if I understand it correctly, the United States has already eased policy sanctions on Russia between selling oil to India to make it easier to help more oil flow. And it's also interesting that when this war started and the price of oil jumped up, as everyone could have predicted, um, basically the Trump administration went to Europe and said, "Hey, can you release your oil reserves to ease the price of oil?" And they basically said,
Some
"No,
of the reserves.
you started this mess. We're not going to help you get out of it," type of thing. Um, if I can be that blunt and say it colloquially, I guess
You can be that clump, but the International Energy Agency has released a bunch of
Yeah,
countries have
400 million
released oil
barrels.
from their things, and it was actually Schumer, Senator Schumer's man, Trump, hurry up and release some of ours. And I think Trump finally came around to release some of the American Strategic Petroleum Reserve also.
right,
So
but
countries are releasing some to help.
at best that's going to be a short-term fix, and I guess they're hoping that this war will be over quickly, and
Mm-hmm.
if it is, then maybe that's good, and it'll help solve the problem. But on the other hand, if it's prolonged and you end up having you know uh, boats going out and laying mines every few days in the Strait of Hormuz, then
Mm-hmm.
these higher oil prices can go on for quite a time. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, so about oil, first of all, the Venezuela, as much as I say it was a good planning, it was not that great because they are currently able to produce less than 1 million barrels a day, which is not a
Mm-hmm.
lot, maybe 800, 900,000. It's not a lot. I mean, it helps, but it's not alternative at the moment, even though they have more reserve than Iran and Saudi Arabia and Canada, not combined, separately. It
Mm-hmm.
has, I think, the biggest oil reservoir in Venezuela.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
but
as you said,
it's similar to the oil in northern Alberta, where it's kind of a bitumen and sand mixture, and Canada started doing research on how to separate that stuff back in the 1970s, and now it's the most of the oil that we sell abroad is bitumen or Western Canada Select that they mix with lighter grades
yeah,
of oil so it'll flow through pipelines.
so,
But yeah, the Venezuela does not have all of that
yeah, it cannot
infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
replace, and it will not be able to replace for many years
Yeah,
to
it's
come.
at least 10 years to build something
But
like Super.
it is a little bit buffer.
Yeah.
what I said. And the other things they are doing, what you said earlier, the US is going to ease their sanction on Russia for 30 days. So it will probably allow India to buy Russian oil.
Hmm.
Uh, so the big beneficiary in terms of oil is, of course, Canada. You probably agree with me for if a price goes
I
up.
think, you know,
And Russia.
as much as I hate going to the tank when the price of oil, like a West Texas Intermediate right now is $99 US and Brent crude is 104. Um, so of course, filling my tank is costing me a little bit more. But as an Albertan, it means that our services are being paid for through
Yeah,
royalties for the next year.
yeah.
So,
And
Woo!
another thing, Saudi Arabia have a pipeline. They can push up to 7 million barrels a day that go from the Gulf to the Red Sea, closer to Jordan and Israel and Egypt.
mhm,
So they can bypass, I don't know, not a third, but maybe a quarter of the oil.
mhm,
Another thing, Iran right now, this is something that maybe they did surprise the US. I'm not sure. Maybe yes, maybe no. That Iran decided to close the Hormuz Straits.
Hmm.
But I think they're allowing Chinese ship to go through, and they are in discussion with India to allow Indian ship to go through. So if you combine this plus the pipeline that Saudi Arabia, and the shock, there will be a shock, but it's not like all the Middle Eastern oil is going to cut off totally. Part of it will be cut off. And I think the US right now, the opening the Hormuz Strait is it's a very high priority for them. And that's maybe I see other allies from Europe and maybe Canada are going to help is helping escorting ships in the Hormuz Straits.
One
And
of the things that's interesting, as I understand it, a lot of those ships that have been damaged actually struck mines. And so, if that's the case, then the Iranians don't have control to say, oh, well, we're going to let this ship go through and not this one. So,
Hmm.
it may be that they won't attack a Chinese ship. That makes sense. But given that the communications from basically the head of the Iranian government to the people who are actually firing the missiles are possibly not that great at the moment. There might also
Hmm.
be standing orders that they have that shoot at anything that tries to get through. So I see the potential for accidents or mistakes to be made, even if the Iranians didn't want to sink a Chinese or Indian ship, it might still happen.
Yeah.
yeah,
Like in
and
the Iraqi Iranian war, when an Iraqi plane sent anti-ship missile, it hit an American destroyer, and then an American plane destroyed an Iranian airliner that was flying. I think it was this pilgrims going to Saudi.
It
But
was
that was
actually
just two of the accidents that happened. I'm sure there were a whole bunch of other
yeah.
friendly fire things that happened
The
because their
airliner,
communication was poor.
the airliner was a U.S. Missile cruiser that shot it down. They thought it was an incoming missile, and it turned out to be a Iranian passenger plane. So
yeah,
yeah,
so two other things I wanted to add about oil is one that I heard people are calling to Europe to start fracking. That's the technology that currently the US is using mostly
Hmm.
in the Dakota to produce oil.
Hmm.
And European don't like it because it's not most environmentally friendly. But if they have no choice, they can start
Hmm.
fracking.
Yeah, it's another
And
blow against the net zero greenies. Hey,
yeah,
we're gonna have this wonderful solar and wind. It's gonna do everything. Now the price
yeah.
of energy
And
has gone through the roof.
the big thing that you may want to start discussing we want is the Craig Island. Do you think the Americans are going to take it over? And what will be the Iranian reaction if they do?
I
at
missed what
this
was
point,
that about? I missed the part.
Karg Island. So that's the
Oh
island where
yes.
most of the Iranian oil is being shipped from. I think there's a good chance that the Americans will take that over just to secure it, because if there is a regime change they're going to want that regime to start pumping oil, and they want to have those facilities intact, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the few places they can go in Iran where they're not going to be counterattacked easily, because there's no more navy basically to speak of for the Iranians. So I think logically that might be something that will happen.
I was trying to think what would be the Iranian reaction to that. Do you think they may blow up the facility?
It's not in their
If the
interest to do
regime,
that.
it's not in the interest of the regime, but if the regime know this is our end,
Well, it would be nice.
they may.
Politically, it'd be better if they blew it up themselves. But if the United States, especially if the opponents of the Trump regime managed to shut off American support, walking out the door, blast the shit out of the place, and if Iran can't sell any oil, then they truly are flat on their face because they're already impoverished. So yeah, blast Karg Island. Then,
Yeah, so I'll say it's better to capture it, not to blast it.
indeed, but if you can't capture it, Plan
And
B.
the problem with blasting it, there are two problems. One, you're going to create a shock in the similar to the Strait of Hormuz shutdown, but longer
Mm-hmm.
term
Yeah.
of a global supply issue. And
Mm-hmm.
the second thing is that it will not be possible to rebuild Iran, which if there is a
True.
regime change, you want it intact.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, and the point to Roger, the Greens in Europe are pointing out that if they did have green energy, they wouldn't even be dependent on oil, and could basically ignore the price and the war that's going on in the Middle East. So there's some people that are saying that, oh, it's a good thing that this is happening because it'll make the green revolution that much faster. So we'll see.
I doubt it.
I think
Dream
it will a
on.
little bit.
Dream on.
If and okay, so first of all, it will make transportation more expensive, and it will make more sense to invest in electrical vehicle
Mm-hmm. Or as mentioned,
some degree. But
as you mentioned, do more, do the fracking, which for political reasons it would happen in England for the last 10 years, like demonstrations, uh, block the traffic and do this because we've all got to do this. Like, sorry, it's your green revolution is not happening. You got uh, the green new dark ages coming in Europe, the rate they're going.
Well, so let's talk about that for a moment. I mean, if you talk to Elon Musk, he says there's no doubt that we're going to get off of oil eventually because there's only so much oil to go around.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's, by 2050 or 2500, we don't know, but it'll happen at some point in the future. The other thing that's very interesting is China is electrifying their grid with green energy more than any other country. Now, at the same time, they're still building coal plants, they're building nuclear plants, and all the rest of it. But they're putting in a lot of solar, they're
they
putting in
want
a lot of
cheap
wind,
energy.
a lot of
Mm-hmm.
hydro.
They want cheap energy, and they are winning the energy race against the West. And they don't care what kind of energy, but yeah, they're building an insane amount of solar panels.
Yeah, and it's precisely for this reason. I think the Chinese are not dumb. They see that they can be cut off from oil
Mm-hmm.
exactly as they are right now, and
They're
essentially
not.
completely cut off, if except for maybe for Russia.
It's
Uh,
not maybe Russia supplying a lot of oil, maybe 50%. I don't know, a lot.
yeah, but I mean, technically, if there was a war, a hot war, the B-2s could go in probably and take out the Russian pipelines too.
Well, there's not a super amount of pipeline going directly from Russia to China. It's seaborne. And actually, Putin asked China, "Hey, come on, help us build a pipeline." And the Chinese mainland they were a little slow on taking him up on the offer, which they might be bitterly regretting at this point. And of course, they might have some other things going on. It's like Iran takes us back to China versus Taiwan. And interestingly, the Chinese military maneuvers around Taiwan have significantly dropped off, which is either A, because they're being very cautious about Trump, or B, because they just want to gather everything quietly and be ready while the United States is busy with Iran. So it's
Not
either
just busy, it's
real good
also
or real bad.
the US is taking missiles from Korea and Japan and shipping it to the Middle East.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And of course, that stockpile took decades to build up. So who knows how quickly the United States is going to be able to ramp up production in case of
Mhm.
a prolonged war.
Yeah,
It's kind of
so
interesting. I heard that yeah, basically they used all of the missiles that they had available, and now they're kind of withdrawing to resupply a little bit.
Mhm. Well, they're going back to uh, B B-52s and B-1s. Of course,
and the
they led
A-10
off with a B-2 stealth,
and
but now the
the A,
B-1s are going too.
also the A-10 came back for service. I thought
Yes,
though it was retired and now they brought it back, the Warhog.
yeah, the Super Flyboys, white scarves, they our wonderful new jets. That's the best way to do. We better get rid of those A-10s, and then whenever there's a war, it's the A-10s that do the work, and the people on the ground say it's those guys. Don't
It
take those
surprises
things
me.
away.
Yeah, it always surprises me when I hear the Air Force announce that they're going to get rid of the A-10s because it's such an
Mhm.
effective ground support weapon.
Only if
Um,
there is no anti-aircraft, efficient anti-aircraft.
exactly, and that they seem to have done a really good job of taking that out. And this might be a good segue to talk about the Ukrainians because they've been
Mhm.
taking out the Russian anti-aircraft equipment fairly significantly
And
for
the
the last
Shahed,
several months.
Mhm.
and
I
the
don't
Shahed
know.
drones, the Russians fired 57,000 drones
Yes,
in
yeah,
Ukraine.
and a
Mhm.
lot of those came from Iran originally too.
Mhm.
But now the Ukrainians seem to be gaining some ground, literally, against the Russians, and they've been doing some
Mhm.
spearheaded attacks, despite having a smaller army, and despite being on the attack, which generally means that you're losing more troops than the defender. I think the Russians are still losing more soldiers on the ground than the Ukrainians are in their counterattack. The other thing that
Mhm.
ties into this, of course, is the Ukrainians have been focusing a lot of the attention on Russian oil infrastructure, including striking tankers up near St. Petersburg, taking out key pipeline supply locations, taking out a lot of Russian refineries that have parts that essentially the Russians can't replace. It
Mhm.
can only be purchased from the West. So they've been doing an
Mhm.
effective job of hurting the Russian infrastructure in terms of oil and
Mhm.
gas, not to
Mhm.
mention cutting off the pipelines that run through their country to Romania and such.
Yeah, and they even hit uh, drilling platforms in the Caspian Sea. That was a
Impressive.
long haul to get there, but those those platforms are multi-billion-dollar structures. So the cost that Russia is being hit with is just enormous. And one compressed natural gas ship in the Mediterranean, $500 million, bottom of the Mediterranean Sea. So uh, there's this fellow named Paul Warburg, is one of the bloggers on that podcasters talking about it, and he was saying the the uh, the war, the country with the initiative, has now shifted to being the Ukraine. There, Russia was slowly, kilometer by kilometer, taking land. The last 3 months, Ukraine has been taking it back, and the drones are now up to maybe 90 miles deep kill zone
Mm-hmm.
behind the front.
Yeah.
I want
So,
to add another aspect is the
mm,
math of intercepting drones. Uh,
yeah.
in It's more relevant to the Gulf country than to Israel. because they have even take more of the attack, and also they don't have
Hmm.
the cheaper system that Israel has. So in order to intercept the Shahed drone that cost about 20 to $30,000, they are firing either a Patriot or a THAAD missile that cost, I don't know, between $4 and $7 million to shut
Hmm.
down $20,000 drones. So this is not something that's totally sustainable. And this is
Hmm.
someplace that Ukraine can help because they were
Yes.
able to develop cheap drones that cost, I don't know, maybe a few hundred to a few $1,000s. I don't know, maybe $5,000.
Hmm.
These drones are flying faster than the Iranian drone, and they can intercept and take them down at one quarter of the price.
Yeah.
The
Ukraine has
equation
become very popular with the Gulf states.
is Israel took another approach. Israel has the Oraitan, that's the iron beam.
Hmm.
Uh, it's a laser system. That one, I mean, it cost to man it and to buy it initially, but the cost per interception is about $3.50. This is only
Okay, so it
for
is a laser,
it's a
you're
laser
saying?
system. It, it,
Aha.
it, it you need to charge electricity. I don't know the charge capacitor and stuff, and it's between $2 and $3.50 per interception. That's the cost of electricity. So this has been used
Mhm.
for the first time this week or last week against Hezbollah the missiles that came from Lebanon. So I'm not sure how effective it is against drones. Probably short ranged. It has to come close, and drones are maneuvering. Um, and
Yeah.
another way that I saw that drones are being taken down is by airplane. You take a F-16 that costs, I don't know, maybe 15 or $20,000 to operate, and then you take it down with the 20 millimeters cannon. Like if you don't use
Hmm.
air-to-air missiles, it's still it takes a lot to operate the F-16, but not as
Yeah.
expensive as firing a
Mhm.
Patriot.
If you
Yeah.
don't have air-to-air support with your attacking drones, helicopters, the Ukrainians have used them as well.
Yeah, you put
But
machine guns.
mhm. But like as you were saying, the Ukrainians have been working on the cheap drones, and the thought is that the Gulf states and Saudi Arabia would be buying drones from Ukraine, which would be a money source, and that would be the Ukrainian economy could become, or a number of the people have said Ukraine might be a military powerhouse for selling various types of weaponry.
Okay. And
That,
technology, I think,
mm,
and tactics and such. So the Ukrainians
yeah.
are going to the Middle East and demonstrating how to use these new tools as well as, how to use the equipment in general, because
Mm-hmm.
they've developed those tactics now over the last 4 years of war with Russia
Mm-hmm.
and are getting quite effective at it. So
Mm-hmm.
the other thing that's kind of interesting to compare between the two is, of course, the United States has been supporting Ukraine with, with Starlinks, but also the CIA has been feeding them information as of MI6 and other intelligence agencies from the West.
Mm-hmm.
And now the Russians appear to be doing the same with Iran, giving the locations of various military bases or personnel or whatever that they can target with the Shaheeds.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you guys think of? Is that just tit for tat? It's kind of interesting that when Trump was asked by reporters about Russia feeding them information, he just kind of brushed it off and said, "Ah, that's no big deal."
I know that right now you cannot get commercial satellites from the region. It was all it's all being censored because they don't want the Iranians to get satellite feeds,
Right?
commercial satellite feeds. I can tell you the status of that, what
Yeah.
they are targeting,
Mm-hmm.
and was it the what the hit?
Mm-hmm. Gee, and of course, if one of the Iron Dome lasers just happened to
It's Iron
be
Beam.
shooting at a drone and kind of drift off into a higher, more toward the azimuth, they might actually hit uh, a spy satellite. Who
I
knows
don't.
how these
I,
accidents could happen?
I suppose, but the I don't think that the beam is so powerful in long distance like that. Um,
For hitting a reconnaissance instrument, one of these, how many kilowatts are the Iron Dome?
well, I know the
Iron
British
Beam.
are working with something that's I think 30 kilowatts, so I'm not sure what the
Iron
Israeli
Beam.
one is.
Uh,
The
yeah.
Americans, of course, have got beam weapons as well. I think they might have something up to 100 kilowatts.
I think they're
Yeah.
100
It's,
kilowatts is supposed to be coming, but I think they're still less right now. And then, of course,
it
well,
costs
looking things up.
10
Mhm.
million per system, but it's only like $3.5 per interception. Yeah, trying to find it information. Maybe I should ask AI. Yeah, you please talk about something else while I look
Okay,
We'll
yeah,
let
on
Ron do research in the background.
beam.
yeah.
Uh, what do you want to do? Kilowatts.
Yeah. So anyway, the with the war in Ukraine, uh, it, I thought that like when Russia first invaded Ukraine, China was watching very closely to see how the West would react, and looking for an opportunity to do the same in Taiwan. And I think that they, based on the lack of Russian success in Ukraine, even though they had some successes early on,
Mhm.
that kind of changed the mood in China to attack Taiwan. Not to mention recently that there have been purges in the Russian army where many of the heads of the different forces were um,
Mhm.
basically taken out of their positions, I guess you could say.
Yeah, so I found some information about the ion beam. It's using 100 kilowatt
It is
direct energy
100
weapon,
kW. Okay.
and it's good for short range threats like rockets, mortar, artillery shell, drones, UAVs,
Hmm.
and small flying targets. So it's not ballistic missiles up to 10 kilometers.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So it probably cannot shoot down a satellite.
Well, wouldn't you don't have to shoot it down. I think uh, it's this is reconnaissance. This is like very uh, very strong telescopes that'll gather light from you know 5 inches across and put it onto a
Yeah,
microchip thing.
probably
So
not. Probably not
if
likely. There are
if they
a
can't,
lot.
mhm, the satellite would the structure would still be there. But if you get into the scope, it's the same thing with NASA. They have their satellites for watching the Earth or looking at the moon or something. But the one thing they must never do is accidentally swing the scope up to look at the sun. Poof! You
Yeah.
burn your innards in short order.
Yeah,
So
so I
that's the
suppose
thing.
it's possible that you could destroy the what are they called, CCDs, charge coupled devices that
Hmm.
basically are used by these cameras.
Basically, it's no longer camera film, but it's the same thing that's electronic that does it.
Yeah,
Whether
Yeah,
it's charge couple device or
space is big.
whatever
I don't
thing.
know how many
Mm.
satellites there are. There probably 6, 7,000. It's probably less than airplanes. The chance of hitting it, it's probably not very high.
It's
well, especially
it's
since you said it's to space, it's 60 kilometer or yeah, 60 miles or 100 kilometers. Is that right? Something like that. So if those satellites are above the atmosphere, and you said the range was 10 kilometers, it's not likely that they're going to do tons of damage. And to get to your point, Roger, to actually hit the camera on something that far away would would be like a one in a million shot kind of thing. So
well, if you're in the location that the camera is observing, then you'd be in the place where you could be at the angle that the camera would be looking down. And again, it's another spy thing. If you know how the Russian or Chinese spy satellite is working, you know how to attack it. And hey, a couple of the guys in the High Defense Department were, it's claimed that in the purge in China that they were selling secrets to America. Would American spies do something like that? Why, heaven forfend. Spies never do things like that, do they? Hell yes.
No.
Because I mean, this whole issue was talked about in the. It was, speaking of science fiction, the Ronald Reagan's defense shield way back in his administration in the 1980s. The issue was you couldn't knock down a ballistic missile warhead coming in because it's heavy duty metal. You'd have to melt uh, a quarter inch of steel in that warhead.
Mhm.
But the the instruments looking at things, they are tremendously vulnerable. So this, of course, gets us into issues of legalism. Like this would be space war,
Mhm.
but tech technologically can do easily with a laser. Now,
But
on the other hand, Iron Dome against drones at low levels, you need lots of lasers because the drones are so low that with the curvature of the Earth, one one uh, one laser in one position or battery of lasers can't get it. So
and it
every
maneuver.
15 or 20 miles, if you're going to really stop these critters, or around the most vital places would have a place there,
I
and
wonder
or
if you
you have to
can.
be airborne to of course the Germans had this nice Sophie. It's an infrared scope for a telescope for looking at the sky, and that was in a kind of like an Airbus. If you had something like that, and you're up at say 25 or 30,000 feet, then you can hit a lot of drones.
yeah. Go ahead, Ron.
Can,
You wanted to say
No,
something?
just if we want to move to the next topic, I would suggest before we try to predict the ending, maybe talk a little bit about AI.
oh
How
yeah,
Yeah, well,
AI.
yeah, that's what I wanted to mention. So my understanding is this is the first time AI has been used fairly extensively in war, and that
mm-hmm.
was part of the reason that they were able to take out the leader of the Iranian government, the
Mm-hmm.
Ayatollah, because they knew exactly where he was instantaneously, and they're still able to using spy networks and various other things. And I think, Ron, you were alluding to even civilians posting stuff. So the AI is able to go through that information and say, oh, there's a group of Iranian guards here, and we can go and blast them with a tomahawk or something like that. Is
Mm-hmm.
that right, Ron?
Yeah, so there is a company called
Mm-hmm.
Palantir that they try to gather all this information and process it very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you heard on the news, there was talking about entropics that they refuse to allow the US to use it for military purposes, like
Yes,
surveillance.
and Trump
And
was going to
then,
ban Claude for that.
yeah, which is a bit weird because Claude is currently the best AI for developing software.
Yeah.
I mean, it has alternatives.
Mm-hmm. And good for large documents. Chat GPT and Claude are the same for small documents, but for large documents, Claude.
Yeah, they have Google is getting there.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Google is.
it's interesting to me to watch the evolution of these companies. So Anthropic, as I understand it, the leaders of that company started out with OpenAI and they didn't like the ethical direction that OpenAI was going. So they said, we're going to do AI, but we're going to be focusing more on the ethics. And now they've essentially been forced by the US government to say, okay, ethics be damned. We're going to we have to stay in business and there's good reasons for us to support our country and this sort of
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Yeah.
But it reminds me a bit of how, Google's original statement was do no harm or something like that. And in the meantime, they've gone on to become essentially I don't want to use the word. Well, I'll say it, but it's not the right word. But they essentially are predators gleaning knowledge from their users, and then using that for their own
Monetization.
lining their own pockets, basically.
That's the paranoid thought. But just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they aren't stealing your spline.
Yeah, so basically because of AI, that's why I think the war is planned and it's probably going to end in a positive way for the US. Not necessarily a regime change.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, we have got oil spikes and a disruption to the global economy. And now, if this was, 4D chess, which I'd never expect 4D chess from the Trump administration, but if it is, it looks like that they are actually targeting the oil infrastructure and trying to control oil and natural gas as a commodity around the world. Um, and if you're a cynic and you think that Trump is
No,
a
no,
puppet
not,
of Putin,
not just oil, but also resources like lithium and rare earth minerals.
okay, and if you're
Mm-hmm.
cynical and you think that Trump is in Putin's pocket somehow or another, this war works very well for Putin in the sense of, oh well, we've lifted the oil ban, so now we have money to
And they
prosecute our
sell
war against
China.
the
They sell
Ukrainians.
China. They make a
Mm-hmm.
lot of money selling oil to China and India.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can look at this. I don't claim to have any particularly great
Mm-hmm.
insight. I'm just looking at this as a common man with the information that I have. So
Yeah, but because of AI, I think that there was planning.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not completely out of planning as the media try to pretend it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so do you want to move to the guess how it will end?
sure, that sounds like a
Yeah.
good way. I honestly can say that I can't make any predictions on how it's going to end. So I'll just defer to you, Ron.
Oh,
What's going to end? There's a
The
bunch of
war in
things.
Iran,
Oh
how's it
yeah.
going to end? Yeah.
it
Okay.
will not go forever. Okay, so I'd have to checked different analysis through Grok what the predictions are. So they said that the most likely way it will end is in agreement between the US and Iran, and an agreement that will include no nuclear, ballistic missiles, and probably try to stop funding to the proxy networks. So Hezbollah and Houthi will be able to be dismantled. Uh, Second chance, there is a lower chance for maybe 20-30%. This is what Israel is trying to push, but it is a lower chance to succeed. That's a regime change.
Mm-hmm.
Like the current regime is really, how do you say, it's a religious fanatics who are motivated. I don't know if you want to go into,
Theocracy, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
it's not theocracy. The way they operate, they believe that by destroying Israel, they will hasten the arrival of the hidden imam, the
Mm-hmm.
Mahdi, and from it's not the number one priority. Number one priority is survival, and they have other priorities, but they're still influenced by their religion. So their goal is to not have a non-Muslim state in the Middle East, but they still see Israel as the small Satan, and big Satan is the US. So we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about religious fanatics, and so, but do we going to again because survival is more important to them? They can put it aside for a few decades, so you can come to an agreement with them. So the most
Mm-hmm.
likely scenario is an agreement favorably to the
Mm-hmm.
U.S., and I think it could be even more favorably if it take over Craig Island.
Mm-hmm.
A regime change could happen. What Israel is trying to do now is try to eliminate as much as possible of the IRGC and the Basiji. That's a group of volunteers that is bigger. But the IRGC it's about 130,000 people. The Basiji is about 300,000 or 400,000 people, and there is the Iranian army. The Iranian army not touched by much, except for the Navy, Air Force, and missile corps. But the armored division. Nobody touched them. Nobody cared about them. But they tried to destroy the Republican Guard, the Revolutionary Guard. Sorry, that's what it's Iran.
Mm-hmm.
Tried to destroy the Revolutionary Guard and basically provide air support to the protesters. So that's the
Mm-hmm.
second likely. The GOG predict like 20 to 30% chance. And the least likely scenario that could end is that the that it will end without an agreement, with Iran much weaker. This is because
Mm-hmm.
Trump currently have a lot of resistance at home, both from some Republicans and the Democrats who oppose the war. And as the bombing campaign continued, there is a diminishing returns on how much you can achieve. So at some point, you can say, yeah, we destroyed enough of them, we won, let's end it without an agreement. That will leave Iran, the regime is still in power, pretty resentful, but they will not have many missiles and not have much money, and they will have fewer drones, and their nuclear program is going to be delayed by years. It probably means it could be another war in a year or 2 or 3. But Iran is going to survive, the regime is going to survive, but a lot weaker.
Mm. Yeah, that's
The,
why.
the, the most likely scenario is agreement in 2 to 4 weeks. Probably happen after
Mm-hmm.
March 21st, when the Iranian will not get salary. And maybe they will be persuaded to negotiate terms more favorable to the US and agree to some terms.
So other countries, of course, have been attacked by Iran intentionally, trying to draw them into the conflict. Um, to my understanding, there hasn't been much in the way of retaliation from those countries. They've just basically been shooting down the missiles, and that's
The
about it.
United Arab Emirates did one retaliation after the Iranian hit a water distillation facility. They hit a water distillation facility in Iran, but it's not like a wide-scale retaliation. It's more a warning.
Hmm. Yeah, we can do tit for tat just as well, or maybe even better than you can. Yeah. Um,
Uh,
one thing
yeah,
that we, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, but one thing to mention that Iran was firing rocket at neighboring Arab countries a lot more than at Israel. And I think like 11 or 12 countries. That was the Emirates got the most hit. Then they also hit Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, Oman, Oman was a
Mm-hmm.
surprise to me because Oman was pretty neutral and it doesn't have a US bases. Kuwait, Jordan, Turkey, and Cyprus. Cyprus is it's not a NATO member, but it is a EU member, and Turkey is a NATO member. So theoretically, Article 5 should have been triggered, but
Mm-hmm.
Turkey, it's mostly they try to hit the Incirlik, the US base in Turkey, and they hit it near a town nearby. So NATO for now decided not to trigger and neither Turkey is not interested. They want to come down, but theoretically you could say, yeah, they attacked the NATO country.
Yeah.
There's a book about how to win friends and influence people. Obviously, the mullahs have not read that book
Dale Carnegie, yes.
because the all the Arab states, many of whom are Sunni, they can afford to buy lots of sea babies from Ukraine or simply their own, large motorboats with uh, quad 50 caliber machine guns, big enough to hold a quad 50 machine gun to wipe out the motorboats that are the most dangerous. Like the United States has these $2 and $5 billion ships, and but if they run into a mine, you lose that whole thing. Well, over in the and a motorboat with two guys in it with a 30 horsepower Evinrude motor on the back and the guy in the front launching a FPV drone and then watching it out of the screen can hit a big ship, a tanker or a U.S. destroyer. But Saudi and there's other countries they can buy tens of thousands of little motorboats and put machine guns on them to wipe out what Ukraine or Iran expected. That would be the thing. They could swarm, and that's much like the the drones. You swarm with hundreds of craft, one sort or another. Well, people can do their own swarming with just a few guys on motorboats to clear the Straits of Hormuz, and they'd be willing to send their own troops to hold areas on the coast, and they could deal with some similar Arabic warfighting skills to to clear that coastal area. The United States wouldn't have to do it.
The
So it's
problem is
like if you either
one of the
win or or tear up the country, just like Bill Clinton ripped up Serbia to help the Kosovo area. So likewise, Iran could be hit the same way. And indeed, there's another thing, not just create civil war, you can do fitna. And some of these places, like the east side of Persia, are not Shia; they are Sunni. So get it started.
also the
They
West.
won't for 100 years. They won't be building A bombs or missiles. They'll be too busy getting shot at by the neighbors. As there's a Persian saying, and all through the Middle East, 100 years of civil war is better than one day of fitna. So if you want to win, that's how you can do it.
If I can just, I'm going to throw in three red herrings right now. So the
Do you
first
have some?
observation,
Do you
yeah,
have some fish sauce to
I
put on
do,
it?
I do. I got lemon sauce, if you like, or tomato sauce. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so this is as with every war, this is a big win for the military-industrial complex.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, I think it's interesting that part of the things that have come out with the Epstein files is that Epstein was involved in the Iran-Contra scandal all those years ago. And then the
Oh
third red
no.
herring is if you think of how much this war has cost in the the first week here, I find it interesting that first of all Trump campaigned on peace, and then he said there's no money for things like food stamps and Medicaid. I don't know all the different programs he cut, but a lot of social programs. But there always seems to be money for war for some reason. So those are
Mm-hmm.
my three red herrings. Do you have any comments on those?
Epstein, I don't think it's an issue. I know that a lot of people think because it was on the media, Epstein, war in Iran. So
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
the intuitive thing for a lot of people, conspiracy theory, that Trump started the war because of the Epstein files. I don't think so. I also watch
Mm-hmm.
Israeli media and they barely talk about Epstein. They were talking about
Mm-hmm.
other threats and other stuff. I
Yeah.
think it's a product of how the media in the West is built or producing news.
Mm-hmm.
What was the second?
Military stocks, so that's of course great for the military-industrial
Oh,
complex.
that's great. That's great. I'm investing in the military companies that are going up.
It's like
Yeah.
Uh,
some people have ethical dilemmas about investing in military
I
companies.
think that one of the problem in the West is mostly because of the Cold War, is the West is terrified of wars. Any war is bad, 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 bad. But war has been part of history, and if you say that you don't want war at any cost, from game theory perspective, that give a lot of advantages for the bad players to
Mm-hmm.
take advantage of you. So you don't want war. War is a bad thing, but as long as it's not a nuclear total war, sometimes it is the lesser evil.
Yeah, well, and we saw
Mm-hmm.
that, of course, with Hitler and the appeasement when they tried to appease him before the start of the Second World War. But eventually, there was a line. They said, you shall not go past this line, which was attacking Poland,
Hmm.
and they stuck with it. So yeah, appeasement. I agree with regimes that are looking to expand and stuff is not a really good approach. But then the question is, do you start a war because of the Sudetenland, or do you start a war because of the Tsar? Now, it's kind of interesting in history to read back about that. Hitler had orders to his military that if France attacks when they go into the Tsar, they are to immediately withdraw and basically turn tail. But he was emboldened because of the success of it, because France, like you
Hmm.
said, did not want to go to war again. They were still licking their wounds from the First World War. So
Hmm.
definitely
And
good
that
points there.
continued about for the
Yeah, so
Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia.
Yeah.
And then uh, don't I want to die for Danzig,
yeah,
Right.
which is an independent city between Poland and Germany, and that was part of what Hitler took.
I'm not just talking about the Sudetenland, but taking Czechoslovakia that happened in early 20, 1939. They got Skoda, they got all the Czech factories, and
Right.
Germany nearly double its military industrial production capacity. It was able to produce a lot more tanks, a lot of more Messerschmitts,
Hmm.
Mhm.
a lot more
Yeah,
guns and bombs.
yeah. I forget the
Nearly
exact.
double because they were able to take it without a fight,
Well,
without
and
destruction.
Mm-hmm.
also the Anschluss of Austria too. Yeah.
So
Hmm.
there is a reason. But yeah, if there are bad players, you don't want to be afraid to have a limited war with them.
Hmm. Yeah,
Sometimes there is no choice.
if you
And
don't have
I think
courage to defend yourself, to try to stay safe, you'll give up your freedom to stay safe. You'll have neither freedom nor safety.
Yeah, that's Benjamin Franklin, right?
I believe it was. Yeah,
so.
I couldn't think
I
of the
more
name of the
believe
person.
in the method of live it and let live. But if the other don't want to let you live, then don't be afraid of war.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. You have to defend yourself. I agree with that.
Hmm.
Then the third red herring was the cost of war. So there, Trump campaigned on peace, and he starts the war,
Mhm.
and but at the same time, Doge was there
Hmm.
to reduce the government expenses. Well, all of the stuff that they did with Doge was basically undone when they did this attack. So, any comments on
Hmm.
that as an American, Roger?
Well, uh, at least Trump is saving money. He's not sending plane loads of cash to Iran, which Barack Obama did.
He's also stopped building the fast rail between Los Angeles and San
Well,
Francisco.
that's a that's
It cost
another
a lot more than the war.
that's an issue of better planning. It's not evil. The United States sent a lot of money to the enemy, and they used that to build a lot of their missiles and their centrifuges to make nuclear things. So they can save some money there. And if
And to build the Houthis and the Hezbollah. And okay, so in terms of if the war will end up as a victory, there will be a huge gain in international shipping, insurance cost to the Red Sea.
yeah,
That
reduction in insurance costs. Yeah.
because right now I think it's like 4 times more expensive. So shipping from
Mhm.
India to Europe is right now very expensive. They have to go around Africa or go with a very expensive insurance and hope that the Houthis will not take them down.
Mhm.
And as I said, Iran has a lot of oil. It has lithium, which nobody talked about the lithium, but because it's not developed, but they have, I think, maybe the second or third biggest deposit in the world,
Yeah.
to Chile.
Well, that's of course there's a technological issue. People have been working very hard to find batteries that might not need lithium, like sodium or magnesium might be not only safer, but maybe a hell of a lot cheaper because mining lithium is very expensive, at least so far.
I mean, in Alberta, they're mining lithium. I think they've got a pilot project now that's taking produced water from the oil, and of course, um, the seas, the ancient seas that we get the oil from, also have salt water down deep enough in the ocean or below the land here, where they're in those corals and stuff that used to be there. They also have a significant amount of lithium that they're able to
Mm-hmm.
extract. And apparently the process is pretty straightforward, like filtering it through some sort of membrane. And then they put the
Mm-hmm.
rest of the water back down in the well, and they're getting oil and lithium at the same time. So that's kind of a
Mm-hmm.
cool project. I don't know how
Yeah.
much they're producing at this point, but I do know
Mm-hmm.
that they're working on it.
Yeah, so
Yeah. It's
bottom
a
line,
matter of energy.
I'm not sure how much the war will cost and if it will be beneficial or not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But
If there's a major rise in electric vehicles, they would need a lot more, and they don't find a
batteries.
better battery, non-lithium. It takes a lot of energy to either electrically pull stuff through the membrane or pressure to push it through. So ain't no free lunch. Yeah.
that's true.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that was a really good discussion. I really appreciate your input, Roger and Ron, and thanks for joining us, Ron, on short notice. And any final comments before we call it a night?
Actually, I've got one important one. They didn't. It gets us back to Russo-Ukraine. The uh, the issue of AI. That's that's the real revolution where the Terminators are coming with AI. The Ukrainians have been developing the software to uh, find essentially they replace the human pilot for number one, remembering this bend in the river is here, that big power plant is there, that uh, that mountain is another place, and the anti-aircraft guns are over here, so they know how to go to avoid, and that's how they're getting through. And secondly, they can say this is an anti-aircraft gun, this is an anti-aircraft radar, and they say the a human pilot makes the final decision, but I don't think so. I think when they're when they're distant, it's hard to make connection. I think the drones are deciding when to hit now. So that's coming, and the Chinese, number one, they were worried about it. The invasion of Ukraine didn't work out so well. On the other hand, it's like, hey, we've been working on these drones too, and we'll send some to Russia, and yeah, we'll practice with them. So we're going to be ready to make our attacks on the U.S. islands on or U.S. bases on Okinawa and places like that, Japanese bases. So the whole technology of war has changed. It's
Absolutely.
exactly like the Blitz, or more even than the Blitzkrieg in World War II. And tanks, goodbye. They just get blown up.
Yeah,
It's really
but
amazing to see that the technology has moved back almost to World War One with trench warfare and stuff like that, you know. Anyway, sorry, go ahead, Ron.
yeah, and going back to slow airplane B-52, A-10,
Mm-hmm.
uh, there's a slow drone. The Shahid, I think it's very similar to the V1 in terms of
Oh,
a
yeah,
different
that's it.
engine.
I'll sneak
But
in on
yeah,
that. On the B-52s and other things, one of the biggest things in the rest of the Ukrainian war is the JDAMs. And the Russians have them, the Ukrainians have them. The U.S., of course, kind of pioneered them, and they've been used in Iran big time, where it's just an ordinary dumb bomb, and they put $100,000 a clip-on thing with a couple of wings that pop up, and it's got some guidance, and you drop it from a craft that's maybe 5 or 6 miles high, and then it can coast another 20 or 30 miles. And now they're even putting little rockets to get further. And so all these dumb bombs, of which, of course, Russia had tens of thousands of them, maybe hundreds of thousands, likewise, the United States. And that's been doing as much damage as the drones. So it's a simple little thing that people could have thought of 20 years ago, but works much better now with AI.
Absolutely. I got one announcement. I'm going to be doing a talk for the Foresight Network out of Ottawa, University of Ottawa. So the link to sign up for that is fsncanada.com/2026/03
How about text that to us or email it?
I
Better yet,
will.
just
Yeah,
email it to us. I'm not that
fair
good at
enough. I'll do
Put
copying.
that.
it in the notes.
Yeah, we'll put it in. I'll put it in the notes right now.
And
But
hopefully,
yeah, I think again, thanks, Ron. I really appreciated your input and yours as well, Roger. And
okay. Yeah, it was
hopefully,
great information about companies and the Iron Dome.
Beam.
Iron Beam.
Beam. Oh,
Dome
sorry.
is physical interceptors.
Oh, that was just the interceptors. Not really a dome, but a, a coordinated system of interceptors.
Yeah, it's two different technologies. Iron Dome is
Mm,
actual missiles that they send up and guided missiles, and Iron Beam is lasers.
mhm.
Okay, well, if you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your friends, like and share, and we'll see you next week if we're able to.
Okay, and we'll see what you do with your. Oh, this is the one I got to post immediately, so we can put the where your talk's going to be, and so you can be hopefully famous there. And
Yeah,
people, all kinds of people tuning in.
so lots of books, right?
Yeah, and sell some books or get a contract for
Well, it was
extra engineering studies.
as with all of my talks. Basically, the goal is to build the technology that I wrote about, and so I'm
Mm,
hoping that I'll be able to convince some people to do some investing and join the team, sort of thing. So
Probably
yeah,
energy is going to be a big in demand.
it's huge. Yeah.
always. Forever it's been
And
all the way.
we are losing to China. China is making more energy now.
They are doing, yeah, they're ahead on the liquid metal reactors. I think they're working. They've got one running, but other countries have a bunch going. So stay tuned, and we'll look for you next week or the week after on the internet here. So long from Saving the World Before Breakfast with Infinite Resources and our special guests, Ron
Ron
here,
Friedman, yes. Okay,
Friedman,
thank you. See you next
and
week.
science fiction stories to sell. Get the books on Amazon.
All right.
Okay, good night, all.
Good night.
So yeah,
No, good
so
night.
if you want to send me the link and I can put it on Twitter, the last one I didn't put. I have the
Oh,
one from 2 months ago.
okay. Or whoops. Here, I'll talk to you on the
Or to Jeff.
text a little bit. Finish off this one. Here, well, no. Hopefully, I can cut it off. So you wanted the connection for the
I
for
can
the
promote
for,
it in X on X.
oh, on X. Yes, yeah, most definitely. All right.
So
Well,
either I put a link to YouTube or maybe in the future I can just put a copy of the video, but then it's only coming under me. It's better link
yeah.
to.
Okay. Yes. X YouTube. Tell the neighbors down the street, at the coffee shop, at work. Go for it. Anyway, good night again. Have a good one.
Right. Bye bye.